Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your geographic location. I am Mr. Patriarch, joined tonight for a cozy stream by a Mr. Alex. How are you doing, sir?
Doing quite well. How about yourself?
I am doing very good. I just got done getting the boys a bath while the missus both makes dinner and looks after them, so I am truly Mr. Patriarch. And yes, I'm looking forward to our conversation. I am a friend of the Zoomer, as hopefully everybody knows. Some of my best friends are Zoomers, and
Some
we're
of my
going to
best
have
friends.
yeah, some of my best friends. I don't hate Zoomers. Some of my best friends are Zoomers. um, and we're going to be having a little discussion here. And if before we begin, if anyone wants to contribute anything to the show, super fats from super chads are very much appreciated, and we'll be giving any priority should they roll in. I'm looking forward to having this conversation. This is sort of part two of let's call it Our Guys series. The first one was with Matt Erickson, where we talked to him about his company and kind of his path, if you want to call it that, which I did not know beforehand. Very unsettlingly mimics my trajectory in a lot of ways. I was like, wow, dude, like, are you sure you don't have like my biography somewhere and just like chose to live it out or something? I don't know. But it was a great conversation. Matt Erickson, Orthodox, cool guy, love his stuff. Over here from David Ariel Hickman. I don't hate Zoomers. I pity them for they have been betrayed. Yes. Well, we'll get to that here in a minute. But yes, so the inspiration for the stream and kind of just sort of where I'm at sort of at the time or in mentally right now is I just want to talk to like people who are, winning, for lack of a better term, or on their way to winning, or who have a decent trajectory, but with values and perspectives which we would, or myself and probably people who watch the show would identify with, and just sort of kind of get their story and stuff. And I think particularly for a younger Zoomer audience, which makes up a good chunk of the people who listen to my show, I figured it might be helpful. And I've mentioned this character a couple of times, but I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, I got a message from a guy. I think he was a Zoomer, and in any case, he went through a black pilled dating or period as regards females and stuff, and then I just got a message from him the other day, kind of getting a status update from him. And yeah, he's married now, and he's getting his master's, and he's super happy. And she's a French woman. And yeah, it's just nice to see those things. And he pointed to a conversation that I had on this stream as kind of something that sort of snapped him out of his black-pilled state. So, and I'm just I'm not apathetic about politics, but I feel like a lot of that sort of stuff is either already been said or we're kind of in like this weird limbo period where it's better to reflect on how we can set ourselves up to, and Dave the Distributus talks about this quite a bit on his show with the importance of basket weaving, how we could set up networks of trust, of loyalty, and win despite the odds. And that's kind of a little bit about what I wanted to have with this conversation. So, Alex, I do not believe you're a content creator, but can you let the people know about who you are and what you do, as far as you're comfortable doing?
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah. Well, yes, I am Alex. You are correct. I am no content creator. I try to keep off of actually engaging online as much as possible. I just kind of am a lurker, and that's kind of where I like to be, at the very least right now in my current stage of life. But yeah, Jesus. Yeah, so what do I do? Where am I? I am basically as old of a Zoomer as you can get while still being a Zoomer.
Nice.
So
You're a
uh,
you're a Zulenial.
yes, exactly. Nice AA-ism right there. Yeah, I don't know how exactly I found this sort of corner of the internet, but that kind of, I guess, really the formative years of my life going into college. I was kind of on the Sargon train and ended up watching a bunch of AA, and now like you and Dave the Distributist and such. And Yeah, it was just seeing stuff in my own life, like end of high school going into college. It was really blackpilling, and I didn't know what the hell to do, especially because, like, I'm a white guy. Um, Not really many options available for me unless I'm like super well off or know the right people, which wasn't the case for me, really. Um, but Just kind of going through life. It was your work largely, and uh, Dave's, and some other guys in this sphere that kind of broke me out of the whole black pill sort of thing, um, and realized, like, I have to, I can't just sit in my room and do nothing all day and being all woe is me, the world's gonna end, just complete nihilism.
It's over, bro.
Yeah, really. Um, so I guess um, coming out of college, I did get a degree in not something that was completely useless, but only slightly more useful than, say, a psychology degree, I guess. Um, I literally got a degree in making beer in Colorado. So
That's pretty good.
yeah, it is. So I like to joke around that I got the worst of both worlds in terms of 4-year degrees and trade schools, because it's a 4-year program, but I got the education of a trade school. But I got a job in the industry, so I that's better than a lot of people can say coming out of college. Um, During that whole process of going to school, I did manage to find a wife. So I am now happily married. And we just started going to
Nice.
church, actually, too. I'm personally, I'm very much like, I was an atheist for the longest period of time in like high school and stuff. So
Mm.
I'm still very new on my religious journey. Um, the way I had it put, had someone tell me recently that I really liked was, uh, I'm still kind of agnostic, but I'm very much a believer in church, or agnostic on the God
Mm.
question, but the church question is very much pro. Um, just because, community is a nice thing to have, it turns out, and you got to work for that nowadays.
Indeed. Yeah, it's not just something you're born into for most people
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah. You have to
modern
be.
in the modern
Yeah,
West.
most people
So,
not so.
how would you categorize your? I guess we'll tackle these a couple different ways. So, first track, how would you categorize your um, political, I guess, headspace um, from, I guess, the time that was sort of relevant to present? What was the trajectory there?
Um. Well, I guess when my first like political awakening moment was yes, I am sort of a brewer in a way. But yes.
Speaking
Uh
of, I'm drinking a very fine milk stout from a local brewer up here, so I am an appreciator of nice local made beer. So you
very
might have to
good.
send me. You might have to, like, in the private chat, tell me where I can purchase some of your wares. But go on.
Yeah. All right. Um yes, I'm drinking a nice craft beer as well from around here. Yeah, so political awakening. It was prior to Trump getting elected, so probably 2015 ish, 2014 ish. Um, I actually was like a democratic socialist kind of weirdy kind of person like that.
Ah,
Um, God, what was it? Kyle Kalinske, I think he's kind of part of
oh
the
yeah,
Young
yeah,
Turks.
yeah.
Yeah, I there was a period of time where that was my shit, man. Um,
Oof, I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah.
We all have things we're not proud of.
Exactly. Yes. But then, around the same time was Gamergate, and so I was, I was huge in playing video games, but I didn't really like go on to the gaming news websites, just like hearing all this like second, third, fourth hand, whatever. But you know, started watching Sargon. Eventually, found my way to. He kind of tempered me out more like classical liberal. I was there for a while, and then I got started watching AA, and still thought I was like a classical liberal for a really long time. Um, but then just kind of like really hard, like I think it was probably like 2019, 2020 when everything was happening all at once. That is just like, okay, yeah, none of this is real. Everything is a lie. Um, and and that's when like the real doomer black pill kind of stuff hit me, and just kind of dealing with all of the COVID's nonsense. Um, just kind of luckily I'm now in a position in my work where I don't have to, that's like a small business. I don't have to deal with a lot of that kind of stuff, or the people that contribute to that kind of stuff. But still, it just kind of was ever present in my mind, and it really wasn't until probably like maybe a year ago that, and I can't point it to like one specific thing, but like it just kind of clicked in my head where it's like, no, this is not sure. The world may indeed actually be going to hell and everything, but I can still, like do things on my own. Um, I have a garden now. I have backyard chickens. And I'm not gonna like pretend like, oh yeah, I'm gonna I'm totally set for the apocalypse. Come on, bring it. But like it's something that I can focus on to like actually benefit myself, and it's something that I can uh, build my own skills at doing, and kind of making something of myself, I guess, as much as you can by just raising chickens and such.
Yeah, indeed. Now, this is this is an important in I'm not Elmer Fudd, I promise. This is an important point that I think a lot of young guys miss, which is that you see this a lot with like particularly MGTOW guys, where it's or red pill adjacent dudes, where it's like, yeah, the quality women are over there, and it's the stock price of women has reached all time lows, and it's terrible out there. And I'm like, okay, so like let's assume all that's true. why do you have to be a loser who can't, pull a good chick?
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? Like, that's a legit question. Like, why do you have to be like, let's assume everything you say is correct. Like, why does that have to be your life? And usually the answer is, I'm just going through you know, for the ones who sort of have it together, they're like, well, that's a dark time of a dark night of the soul, so to speak. You're right, man. I just need to vent a little bit, but I'll get my shit together. Or the other type is like just the prideful, loser, who's like just they basically want an excuse for why their life sucks, and
Yeah.
that's that is a different problem than just sort of getting demoralized, which is a real thing. People do get demoralized about the political situation, about social situations and interactions and stuff, particularly if they've been, isolated for a prolonged period of time. And so that's, I have sympathy for those characters, but for the ones who are just like, you'll never be happy because it's impossible, and I'm not going to change a thing about my life to try to make sure that I don't, end up a genetic dead end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So was your blackpilling mostly on what, to what extent were you blackpilled? I guess, was it in the relationship sense? Was it in the political, social sense, or all of the above?
Well, so I got really lucky on the relationship side of things. I met someone freshman year, and I mean, I'm now married to her.
Freshman year of high school, college?
College, yes.
Okay. So
So
that would be pre-coof.
yes,
Okay.
yes. We actually just got married a little over a year ago now. But so I always knew that was like a really bad thing in the world, but I wasn't really like, I didn't really date in high school a whole lot. And so in college, I met this girl, and we hit it off really a lot. And that I realized just how bad it is looking at all of my peers and the other women out there, but I didn't personally experience that sort of stuff, thankfully. So it was really all a lot on like the economics of just like, oh yeah, it's all fake money, and it keeps on getting more expensive to do anything. And I'm at this rate, I'm never going to be able to own a home, um, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
and
that's one of those things where like, I just think, what could have been, because I have like low debt, I have a great credit score, I make pretty good money, but I'm like, if only I'd bought a house in like 2019, like,
yeah,
I could
exactly.
have done it then, but not now. So, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so it was a lot of the economic type stuff, and just like I actually had a stint in my college government structure, um, and that was a real big eye opener. Just like I had this this trans person uh, talk about how um, it was male to female, and was talking about how we didn't need to have like, because coke is a big thing on campuses in a lot of places, I imagine, but for my campus specifically it was an issue.
You mean
And
like
so
cocaine?
yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
um
Where I was, it was mostly alcohol, but I think that was just because it was the frozen north. But
Fair
I
enough.
guess,
Yeah, we're a little bit closer to Mexico, where I'm at. um
although we did have a fairly big drug bust in my dorm, now that I think about it. So eh, I don't know. Maybe I was just too straight laced. Continue.
yeah, I mean, I didn't see any of it either, personally, just because I'm that kind of person. But there was like a few overdoses and stuff, so it like became local news on campus, and so there's like a thing to get Narcan, get the RAs, that live in the halls that kind of like check on things to carry a Narcan pen. Like if they see someone passed out and there's drugs on the table or something, then shoot them with that, and it stops all the opiate side effects or overdose effects. And it's actually pretty safe to inject, even if they're not overdosing. But this trans person decided that because cocaine disproportionately affects white men, we don't need to worry about it. And
was this a professor, student, or just
this was a fellow student. This was freshman year for me. I assume they were also a freshman because it was the resident hall association. So you had to be in the residence hall to be part of this organization. And yeah, so they said that, and everyone agreed with them, and it was immediately shut down. And I just kind of like turned around and looked up at him, was like, what just happened? Did those words actually come out of your mouth? Like before that, it was all just like, This Week in Stupid Sargon of Akkad videos, like, oh yeah, those crazy feminist things or whatever. But that kind of was like the first time where it was just like clicked, like, oh God, no, they actually exist and they're here.
I'm seeing one right with my own eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess it was, it was, I mean, the social, that sort of stuff, the blatant anti-white, anti-male agenda, plus just the absolutely tanking economic situation, was pretty much where I was at with my black-pilledness. And I definitely felt myself, like in reflection, like I was kind of veering off from like being simply demoralized into like, woe is me, my life sucks, and so I'm just going to keep my head down, keep watching the doom scrolling feed on my phone to give me an excuse to not do anything else. Kind of getting into that whole don't want to actually do anything kind of mindset. But thankfully, I pulled my head out of my ass and started to make something of myself.
What was that? What do you think it was that sort of changed your mind on that?
So I feel like kind of a double-edged sword. My content consumption kind of led me down this path in the first place. Like, if political
did
YouTube...
it lead you out of it?
Yes, it did. So like, if I would have just like, there was a time when I watched Tim Pool, and he's still doing his shtick from what I gather, of,
Civil War.
Exactly.
Civil War, people. It's all going to collapse.
Yeah. So like, I mean, if I would have just like stopped there and just stuck with that, I don't know how different my life would be, but I don't think it would be. I definitely see all, a lot of the same collapse around us, I guess, but like, I'm not sure I would actually want to pull myself out of it as much. So in a weird way, watching AA and yourself and Ernst Van Zyl and whoever else, it's like, yes, the world is collapsing all around us, but it's like this small corner of the internet is also from what I can tell, the only one saying, and here's something you can do about it. We need to like, it's a cycle of history, everyone. We may not be the ones to actually, we may not live to see Caesar rise again or what have you, but we can still lay the foundation. So get to work, everyone.
Yeah, definitely. I was. Uh, I was never really black pilled, partially because I think before that became kind of prevalent. I guess. Oops, sorry. Okay, we just got really bad winds out here. Because I had sort of like lived in the future in a sense by like living in South Africa, and I was like, it's not great, but it still can be pretty nice.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if you have the right networks, if you are friends with the right people, if you live in the right area, don't get me wrong. Like for the worst part about the thing about South Africa is by far the worst. The people who are worst off for it are the masses of the destitute black people, frankly. Because you'll hear about like the white squatter camps, and that is a real thing, but it is quite a small minority of. I think it's just like one or two areas in Gauteng, like that one that Lauren Southern went to. I think that's the only one I know of, and it's in Pretoria. So the thing is, what ended up happening is when the white South Africans were, so by which I mean the Boers and the Anglos, when they were kind of cut out of a lot of the better jobs in the job market, one of a few things happened. Um, the first is that the cream of the crop, because they were just so good, it was hard to get rid of them. So organizations would have, they'd be like, they just keep, Kouas around because he's like, as a consultant, because they on some level they recognize that they can't get rid of him. And the other thing too that happened is a lot of people pivoted to entrepreneurship and started their own businesses. So if I think about all my friends in South Africa, um, basically all of them, yeah, no, I think all of them. Now that I think about it, all of them work for themselves, or they work for a small company which is not beholden to certain labor regulations, because those only apply to industries over a certain size or certain cash
Mm-hmm.
turnover. So through that, they were able to sort of get around it. And the third group of people were either they had like a farm they inherited, so they worked the farm, or they became a doctor or something. And because there's a massive labor shortage for, skilled professionals, that's the thing, is like, even if there was BEE, which there is, Black Economic Empowerment, there's just not enough. There's vacancies and people not filling those jobs. So those jobs will be filled by whoever takes them. So through those ways, people are able to sort of navigate it. So working for a small business, starting a business, becoming indispensable to an organization so they can't get rid of you, or, yeah, maybe that was it.
Yeah.
Or like inheriting a farm or some sort of enterprise. A lot of people are able to make, still to this day, decent livings for themselves.
Certainly. And I
Now,
mean,
of course, go ahead.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Now, of course, the challenge with that is, even though it's at a lower level than you would of safety, of income that you might otherwise have in a truly functioning society, but nevertheless, it's still not that bad. And the people who really lose are the guys who would be hired by the white business owner or the Indian business owner, and who never got a chance to be able to, get hired by him, because he's not allowed. He's the economic infrastructure political social environment is such that he's not able to maximize his potential and expand his operations to hire the unemployed guy. So those are the people who really lose out in the system. And you do have some people who, of course, fall through the cracks, despite, you know, what I just said. Like some people just aren't cut out for entrepreneurship or business. But what you do see is there does, particularly among the Afrikaner community, a bit of the uncle system going on, a bit of in-group preference, a bit of the like, I'm going to have a law office and we're going to hire this old retired Bura lady to sort of like answer our phones. And we don't really need her, but like it's better than like seeing this, this auntie destitute. So they end up doing that. So the because of that experience, when I'm looking at the incoming demographic problems or whatever, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be bad, but it's not over. And there's no point in getting too worked up or like giving up hope on it, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of what you were talking about a bit earlier. It's a cycle of civilization, and ours happens to be a particularly degenerated and insane one, of course. But even then, like, there's still where goes society doesn't necessarily have to, I guess, that doesn't have to be your fate specifically. And you don't even have to run away. It's the other thing. They're like, oh, you have to flee the country, go to Vietnam and trade Bitcoin or something. Like that's not necessarily the move either. Like you could stay probably right where you are, or like move to a different part of the country that you already reside in and have a perfectly decent life, So yeah, and building networks of friendship, of loyalty, of shared values and whatnot is sort of one of the most important things that you can do, in addition to sort of honing your skill sets and trying to become as successful as you can. Because with, money comes, with the wealth comes the potential for power and influence. And you can use that for our guys. So
yeah, or just even if it's not our guys, it's your own community. Even if they are a bunch of normies, they still deserve a chance to see a different way.
Exactly. And in like the church I go to is a lot of conservative people, but a lot of people who are just kind of normie, but they share my faith and they're really decent people. And I know that if things got sideways or whatnot, like I'd help them out, they'd help me out. And that's just what real community is, but you have to be conscientious in developing it.
Yeah, and I mean that kind of leads well into the whole basket weaving thing. That's been a huge boon for me personally.
Tell me and the people about that. I'd like to hear more about this basket weaving.
Yes, so I'm in the Colorado basket weaving group right now, and we just started. I feel like there's probably some groups that are more active, but than us. But I feel like we have just, maybe it's just because I'm in this one, so I don't know entirely. But I feel like we have a lot of people in the Rocky Mountain kind of area, so we have a pretty active Discord, and we do a decent amount of stuff in real life too. So like we just got a book club going relatively recently, and we've been just going through different classics. So Homer, Odyssey, and then most recently we're reading Frankenstein. And honestly, it's just kind of an excuse. Like we just say that we're going to read the book, and half the time we get like halfway through the book, and then we show up anyways. and it's just an excuse to get together and do something. And we kind of talk about the book, kind of not. But in addition to that, that specific thing, that the book club, like that's the only place that I've actually made friends outside of school here, is through that. Like I I talk with one of the guys from there pretty regularly. He's taken me on hikes. He's absolutely crazy. Um, rock climbing, and like he's fully aware that he's probably going to kill himself one of these days, just by doing something stupid on the side of a mountain. But hey, that's he's on that Faustian drive right there, and he's fully aware of it. So he's just it really has created, at least in my life, a sense of community. Like, I mean, obviously, because it is all over the state and the surrounding states, I don't actually get to see these people every day or every week. But just kind of knowing that they're there and I can actually see them and like put, the screen name to the actual face and shake their hand in real life, it it really adds something that was missing from a huge amount of my life.
Definitely. And that is something which I think I feel like a lot of, not just young people, but people in general who spend time on the internet, struggle to overcome, is moving from the digital to the real, right?
Certainly.
Because when you do make that step, like, for example, are you familiar with the Contra Gines podcast?
I've heard people talk about it, but I've not actually seen it myself.
Yeah. In any case, I actually was listening to Pete Quinones, and then these guys were on his show or whatever, and then it was mentioned that they were in Anchorage, which is close to where I live. And I was like, I'm going to make an effort to meet these people. And I did, and we had a lot of fun, and I've been on their show a few times. And basically the whole reason that I go onto the show is just because I literally just want to hang out with them.
Yeah.
Because I like them. It's fun. We talk about interesting stuff. We imbibe beverages. We eat appetizers and just scuttlebutt and whatever. And it's just a joy to do. It's a delight to do. And, and also sort of subconsciously, like, it's never obviously come to that point, but, if things did get hairy, like, those are two guys that I could call and be like, hey, I need help or whatever. And that's a real thing. And one of them sort of checked on me at one point, and I check on him, and we're just to check in, just to keep in touch, make sure we're doing good. And furthermore, if you're sort of open or candid or put out the right feelers, you can find some people in your own life, maybe at work or even at church or wherever, and you'll be like, one of us, and yeah. So like like there's this guy who goes to my church, and his family and mine are like good friends now, and I'll just like drop a line. Like, he said something about one of the ways is some nonsense about like what his kids were up to or something. I was like, many such cases. And then he laughed like heartily. And I'm like, oh, I think he might plumb the same depths of the internet that I do. And then I just drop a couple more breadcrumbs, and he's gobbling them up. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm like, now we can talk about like, X or whatever. And it's really, it's just nice. And it takes away some of the stress. And like, at the point I'm at in my life, I'm past 30. I have a wife, I got kids, I have a career. And now it's like, okay, like let us unite our families, like in, I say kind of tongue in cheek, like, like we'll make an arranged marriage or whatever. But I mean, like in the sense that we're here for you guys and you guys are here for us. And we're here for, to serve the Lord, make
Certainly.
Alaska Orthodox again or whatever. So, and it's just a really, particularly, and I've never been like a super isolated person. Like that's just not my personality. Like I guess I'd sort of call myself like an extroverted introvert. Like I do really well around people and I'm not trying to avoid people, but I like a lot of alone time. I like to sort of be by myself. Part of that might just be me being a man. I don't know. But the busting out of self-imposed or outside imposed isolation and building proper friendships with like people that you can talk to pretty much anything about. And they're not going to be like, you're a horrible idiot or whatever, or it or like some whatever or ism. It's just it's a big relief, and it also just thoroughly enriches your life. So to anyone listening who hasn't done that, like get off the internet, or if you do go on the internet, like try to find people that you can meet in real life.
Go to basket weavings.
Go to basket weavings. Go to basket weavings. And one of the things, I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but I would like to be able to go to the, what do they call it? The American event.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be having.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do that too. I thought about it pretty recent, real, oh my God, words. I really wanted to do it last year too. But I think it's like $800 for a ticket or something kind of pricey.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but for me, the reason I couldn't do it is, I booked an emergency trip to Florida, like overnight, and then I also flew 4 people from South Africa, and that's just a lot of cheese to scrape together for flying and trips and whatnot. So, but
Certainly.
who knows? Maybe this year I'll pull the trigger and I'll be able to do it. But
yeah, anyway. And I know they've been kind of advertising it as like, it's not just go there, get drunk, have fun, and listen to people talk like you do on the internet, but it's actually yes, very much so. But they advertise it as like a marketing and networking event.
Networking, yeah.
Which
and I think we should like be totally, above board about that. Like meeting people of value who can, help you out and who you can help out as well. That's the thing. You got to keep in mind, people get weirded out by networking when they think they're just trying to get something from other people. But the whole thing is like every relationship has to have reciprocity. So the thing is like, all right, be a guy who can offer something to other people, and then you meet other people who can do that. And then there's just a natural synthesis. Like there's nothing greasy or grifty about like, meeting people like that, provided, you don't just take and you're able to give,
Yeah.
So, and I also, sorry, I just have to laugh at this name, Orthodox Boomer Grandma. Like that is one heck of a username. So thank you, Orthodox Boomer Grandma.
And if you are an actual grandma, then congrats to whatever child of yours got you here.
Yeah, it says, I've got 2 sons, 23 and 25 and 23, not Orthodox yet. Well, one may hope, Kyrie eleison, Lord willing. But in any case, here, let me go through sort of my notes here. Basket weaving in Colorado. So let's move on beyond so we talked the relationship angle. We talked the basket weaving angle. We talked about sort of your college experience. Now, mentioned homesteading. So let's go back a little bit. So you've just graduated college. now sort of where are you at? How do you handle Coof, and then how do you pivot from there?
Yeah, so kind of alongside, backing up slightly, a little bit more, but all throughout like college, I just found myself like, just in the YouTube algorithm, it's always like sending me like gardening videos and stuff like that. And so I just kind of like,
Filipino guys making mud houses.
yes, exactly. Um, all of that stuff. And it just, it it started out just kind of like, oh, that's kind of a cool thing. I'll watch that for, oh shit, that's like 4 hours have passed. And that kind of experience. But it just, I guess initially it was definitely like, oh God, everything is happening all at once, COVID, everything. It's like, I gotta leave. I gotta figure something out. So it was definitely like, um, I was running away from, society, in large parts, and thus I want to live on my mountain in a shack and have a couple goats and have a, no trespassing sign, or whatever the case may be, and just be alone. Um, but just kind of, so through my job, um, I work rather closely with a farmer, and so I've got to kind of experience a lot of that
Got
sort
to
of.
get that grain right.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and that's, I mean, my specific work is kind of unusual in that we do have that sort of relationship with a farmer. Um, Not everyone in the brewing world actually cares. It's like, oh, it's grain. It comes in a bag, and that's all they think about. Um, but that experience of, I've done some work on the farm, even just because they needed an extra hand that day. Um, and it's a big farm, conventional agriculture type stuff, which isn't what I want to do. There's the buzzword. It's basically a buzzword now, like regenerative, sustainable agriculture. Um, it is becoming kind of, corporatized, but there is an actual thing behind that is kind of really needed. And it just kind of pushed me from kind of like, just that's kind of a cool thing to watch on the internet, and it's an alternative lifestyle to the utter hell that is modern society in cities.
But not the lame alternative lifestyle, right?
Yeah, no.
Not those sort of alternative lifestyles.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, it's um, well, I mean, from the modern society's perspective, it kind of points, or it paints, farming life as being lame. But yes, it's also not, doing drugs and living in a favela under a highway, that sort of lame either. Um, so it just kind of, it has grown to the point where, like, I always knew that, like, if I could get land, I would. I want it. I want to own my own piece of land, and not just like, a suburban cookie cutter house. Um, so, um, I'm actually now doing a non college. I don't even know what you would necessarily call it. It's like an online class, specifically
Like
for,
some sort of certification.
yeah, certification. It's made by this, um, person that has their doctorate, in soil science, and it's basically like, instead of adding tons and tons of fertilizers and chemicals to your field to kill everything that isn't corn or soybeans or whatever you're growing, maybe like, it's a more natural way of growing things. So like, you actually like in an ecosystem, the lion eats the gazelle, and the gazelle eats the grass, and the grass photosynthesizes. You have your whole uh, food web. The same thing happens with like microbiological on a microbiological scale in soil. And so if you have, your fungus and your bacteria and all that stuff in the soil and the things that eat all that stuff, then plants will naturally grow and get all the nutrients they need, basically. So you don't need to pay for, hundreds of tons of nitrogen fertilizer and have it shipped from Germany, made with Ukrainian natural gas, or anything of that. It's all just on site, naturally happening. You just reap the benefits of it. So, and
if I may interject here, this sounds and I only mention it because it's related to what you're talking about, and it's also has a funny little um, joke for people who are in the know. But there's this organization. So before I moved from South Africa, there was this organization. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember, but it was basically what you're describing, and it was based in South Africa. And they go, and we were the guy I think who started or I don't know if he started the organization, but he was heavily involved in the organization and going around teaching sort of this methodology of agriculture. And the guy's name was Carl Schmidt.
oh
and
my God.
and really cool Afrikaner dude. And his whole thing with agriculture was basically to make a layer of mulch. So the main thing is you don't really till the fields. You instead have like a layer of biomass on top of where you're planting your stuff, and it's a way to sort of grow things in nutrient lacking soil, and it also helps with water retention and stuff. It was really interesting. So if anyone's interested, that's called Farming God's Way, and the guy to look up, his name's Carl Schmidt. So
Okay, yeah,
easy name.
that's new to me. I'll have to check that out too. But
S Carl with a C, SCHMIDT. But yeah, anyways, his whole thing, and he's gone all over Africa teaching this farming methodology. And there's like amazing pictures of like people in like Namibia with like, sandy ass soil. And then a couple of years later, they're like harvesting, whatever in like the middle of nowhere using this methodology. And the whole thing is, to avoid pesticides and stuff, and also make land which is not particularly arable. So using just natural things that you'll find in your environment and the leftovers of previous crops and stuff. So anyways, continue.
yeah, I mean that goes pretty well. I mean, I was just kind of explaining the nitty gritty of this specific course that I'm taking, but that's kind of like what I want to do. I mean, Colorado is a desert. It's semi-arid desert technically. But I mean, it's like we get, I think, 14 inches of rainfall a year, maybe. And so like the idea of being able to create like a lush green landscape in the middle of that sort of just desert just really intrigues me. So that's kind of like my end goal is basically like I'm just got my finances in order pretty much, like such that I can actually save. And so it's like if I really save every last penny I have, it's like 2-3 years I can put a down payment on like 20 acres, something like that, relatively near here. My wife is still she's actually a PhD student right now, so have to stay within close to the university probably, which kind of sucks because that means land prices is like even more expensive. But like that's the goal, is get 20 some acres and put that into practice of just like there's the idea of like the food forest, where like every layer of a forest is beneficial to other plants. And so you can like, for your canopy trees, you could have like hickory, and they make hickory nuts. And then below them, you have apple trees that make apples, obviously. And then you have like grapevines climbing the trees and making grapes. And then at the bottom, you have like strawberries and other berry bushes that do the ground cover. And then you have mushrooms that grow in the soil that, you know, decompose everything, but then also pop up and you can eat said mushrooms. And it's a whole lot of work to get established food forests generally, but once you get them there, they're basically just like a self-continuing system where you can like, you know, you spend 5-10 years setting it up, but then you can leave for 10 years and then come back and it's basically exactly as you left it. It's still producing food and doing everything naturally, such that you don't have to work for your agriculture anymore. You literally just forage.
That's really interesting. That's an interesting method. Yeah, the I posted a link in the chat for Farming God's Way, and there's a old Carl Schmidt there you can talk to. But yeah, their method was more typical farming, but different is basically it. So it would not be. It does seem to be sort of related to kind of what you're talking about, where you basically make the land a type of, you're enriching it through living organisms that are not, which themselves sort of fertilize the land. And that's where you get a lot of your nutrients from. But yeah, it's as opposed to putting in, basically vitamins into the soil via, fertilizers and whatever. But yeah, no, it's a cool thing to check out. Although up here, my options for growing things are fairly limited by my climate. In Alaska, although there are a number of things that you can grow very well up here. One of them is any kind of tubers, so carrots, potatoes, turnips. I think we have every year there's like a cabbage growing competition.
Oh, and those are crazy.
Yeah, and they grow enormous cabbages up here, and I think part of it is because of the amount of sunlight we get during the summer. So yeah, I mean, there is farming that you can do up here, and fairly recently, they actually cultivated a type of barley that is able to withstand some of the colder temperatures up north. So there's a town close to Fairbanks, Alaska called, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name, Delta Junction. And they started kind of like what you're talking about. they just bought a bunch of land, and then they have this type of barley that'll grow up there. And yeah, now they're making barley, and now they're selling it at Three Bears, which is like a local grocery chain, which is doing well. And you can buy pancake mix, you can buy, breakfast farina. It's just cool. And then in turn, I think they also supply a number of the brewers in the state as well.
Very nice.
So barley for beer. So it's just cool to sort of see that sort of stuff. Local industry, local agriculture. And even though you can't exactly grow tomatoes or grapes outside, there are still things that you can definitely grow. And it's just cool too,
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten to that point yet, mostly because I rent and I don't, own my land. But, I too have fairly recently gotten to the point where I'm able to save regularly. Of course, I've had the difficulty of starting and restarting my whole career twice within about 5 years, and moving across the globe on 2 occasions. But I feel like things are sort of stabilized now. Yeah, that is something I've had an interest in for quite some time. So I guess sort of let us kind of we're on the out we're on an hour about now, so let's just sort of kind of tie this off a little bit with sort of your, I guess, kind of spiritual journey and sort of your goals for sort of how you sort of see your life going and what you'd like to see, like, let's just say the broader community of like people who listen to this type of show. What do you think is the future for them, I guess, and how could they avoid the pitfalls and seize the opportunities?
Yeah. Well, just for me personally, I I decided a long time ago that church is probably a good thing, but I kind of just sat on my ass and did nothing about it.
Yeah. It's
Um,
like the Stefan Molyneux situation. Church
yeah,
is good for society. Yes.
exactly. Yeah. And it wasn't until maybe a month or two ago, a little bit longer than that, but recently, regardless, I just started going to the church that's like 3, 4 blocks down the road from me, just because it's the closest one. Um, and it happens to be a Presbyterian church. I grew up Catholic. Um, I went to Catholic school for a little bit, so that kind of made me hate religion. uh, so
Whenever you hear the words "raised Catholic," they're not Catholic anymore.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately.
So I mean, going to a Presbyterian church though, I call it Catholic light. Um, they actually it's a lot of the very similar sort of stuff. We don't kneel, and we actually did communion once in my time there, but I think that's just because it was like the Thanksgiving celebration. It's not every time, so there's definitely like weird things for me. But I realized that I'm the weird one. I was the Catholic, and in a Protestant nation, um, but it's certainly not like I've been to a few Baptist churches, and that was like just I was better dressed than the pastor, and I had a flannel on and jeans. Um,
Yeah.
um, but so I guess for me, I personally just want to be more connected with my actual on the ground community. And a church is a great place to start if you don't have one. Um, and I'm my wife and I are probably the youngest couple there, but there's like, maybe half of the congregation is less than or is 50 and younger. Um, and then obviously the other half is pushing 70, 80. So it's definitely an older church, but it would be nice to get more youth in those sorts of events. And I think that, our online milieu, it definitely skews younger. And I figure I'm probably pretty similar to a lot of people on here who
Yeah.
watch this kind of content where it's like, if you're not explicitly religious, then you at least are not anti-religious. Um, and so,
And then hopefully at some point it becomes, I came for the community, I stayed for Jesus.
exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean,
Yeah. There
I,
is something to say, fake it till you make it. That
yeah,
that is a real thing. And
definitely.
people will put that down, but I mean, if anything, if you get to the point where you're just being open to the gospel is more than a lot of people can say. So anything that gets you there is my take.
Certainly. And I always thought that, it's a Protestant church. There's so many of those that just literally have the gay pride flag up in my town. This one in particular doesn't. But I just assumed, oh, they're all going to be like that pretty much. But no, it's the pastor is a bit effeminate, probably, for a lot of people's, hard reactionary preferences, but he's not gonna pull any punches either with scripture. I've found it's like just the last Sunday he was talking about how the golden calf in the Old Testament, where it's like, yeah, God probably was going to kill all of the Israelites if Moses didn't stay his hand. The God is really not someone you want to mess with. So
yeah,
do
you don't
the
want to
right
piss
thing.
off God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. No, and that's the thing too. It's, there's, in my experience, most Christians that I've met, and it might just be where I live, but I'm sorry, most Protestant churches, you'll find a lot of normie conservatives, but not like the whole progressive thing. That's more of a mainline church thing. But like if you go to a evangelical church, or an Orthodox church, or like probably most Catholic churches, I don't know. There's a lot of people who aren't on board with the program, and even though they might not be red pilled on everything, their heart is actually in the right place, and they do, not like a lot of the stuff that's happening in the culture. But this is the thing about media, which gets sort of overlooked a lot, is people who, we all know the media lies, but think about it like this. What do you really know about like a foreign country if you haven't like lived there or studied it, in depth? Um, what does the normal person? What do I know about Kyrgyzstan? Nothing, aside from like what I'll hear in the news, right? Because I have really no interest, particularly in Kyrgyzstan. Now maybe I should, but that's just the fact. I don't know about Kyrgyzstan, so anything that I come across or am informed by about Kyrgyzstan is going to be, incidental to my sort of day-to-day routine. And if I, do hear about Kyrgyzstan, that's going to come through the media, right? Who lies to me about everything else. So, and now it might be that what they're saying is true about Kyrgyzstan, but we have to remember this is the lying corporate press we're talking about. So, and it's the same thing too for the people who are unaffiliated with Christianity, is they'll be the puff pieces for progressivism, with like sister they them from the Episcopal Church of Sacramento or something, and they'll be like, knew it, that's Christianity. But in reality, like if you actually go there and talk to the people, in my experience at least, that's typically not the case. So even today, like if you go to even like a non-denom church like Hillsong, like as as unserious as an organization like that is, like they will still say, yeah, we're not cool with gay marriage, and that's Hillsong. So if you're going to an Orthodox church or a Reformed church, something that's more spiritually rigorous and serious, yeah, I mean it's not. I kind of I don't necessarily believe the whole hype that it's all just gay pride flags everywhere at the churches. Now, of course, there are some, but is that most of them? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
But, anyways. All right, cool, man. So, and I guess sort of last point, what is your message to the people? I guess for young Zoomer out there, what would your advice be to him?
To the young Zoomer watching this, uh, work is good. Go to church. even if you don't believe in it, I don't believe in it necessarily. I don't know if I believe in God, but I still go to church. Hopefully I'll get there. You should too.
Excellent. And as far as career paths go, would you recommend a typical 4-year degree, or would you recommend other ways? Having been through the system, what's your take on that?
Yeah. The only reason why you should ever go to a university or college, or even like, local community college, is if you're like dead set on like a specific career path that requires it. Like if you're going to be an engineer, lawyer, doctor, anything that requires like a state sanctioned degree like that, that's like the only reason you should go. If I could go do it all over again, I'd probably just become an electrician or an engineer or a HVAC guy or something like that. I would have saved 4 years of my life, started out making the same amount of money I am now 4 years ago, and had no debt.
Solid advice. Yeah, that's basically exactly my advice as well. So if you're on a career path, or if you want to get into a career that requires that credential, obviously get the credential. But if you don't, if you're like millions of people, just like, I'll just get a degree and figure it out later. It's a retarded idea. Don't do that.
Absolutely.
It's much better to just get a job and, in a field that is at least interesting or remunerative, and just do that. Because, ain't nobody got time for 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars in debt for something that doesn't pay. So
the parties are not that good.
The parties are not that good. So yeah, that would be my advice. Maybe I'll that'll be a good topic for another future stream, is different ways on navigating college or not. But anyways, hey man, it's been a real pleasure to meet you, Alex. I've enjoyed this conversation. It's been cool. And is there anything? You say you're not really involved online, but is there anything you'd like to plug? Any breweries or anything?
Basket Weavers. Join your local Basket Weavers today.
Join your local Basket Weavers today. You heard it from the man himself, folks. So thank you very much for joining, everybody. This has been a delight. And until next time, I'm Mr. Patriarch. Have a good evening, and I'll see you next time. Patriarch out.